So in today's video, we're going to learn how to design a mute button for our game so that we can turn on and off the sound effects that we have just learned how to make in our last video. But we are going to be using a tool called a module in order to manage these sound effects, and it'll all come clear as the video goes on, but essentially that is an external file to our gameplay file. It's outside our GP1 file. We're going to require it in, and we're going to use it as our own library of tools and resources that we're going to create. And the benefit of doing this is that we can then control some of the sound effects that we are going to want to use throughout the game. And obviously in tic-tac-toe there's only one gameplay scene, but I'm going to give you a real example of why managing something like this once, whereby you might have 100 levels, say in a slider square game, you wouldn't want to necessarily make 100 files worth of edits if you change the sound effect. So it's all happening in today's video. Hey, how you doing? Welcome back. My name's Angela McCall and this is Point and Click Puzzle Games, a small YouTube channel dedicated to helping people learn how to program mobile app games using the LUA programming language and Solar 2D game engine. Now, if you haven't been here before, please do subscribe and click that bell to stay notified as to when I release other videos. And if you've got any questions or comments, please put them below this video. I'll do my best to answer them. Now, in the last video, we learned how to add a very simple diddling sound effect to our game upon the player successfully winning a game of noughts and crosses. And having used that same sound effect process, you could add that sound effect into making a tap sound for when people push the buttons, or the whoosh sound so when a character gets placed on the board, and all those other wonderful little things that help bring the game to life. Now, I actually stopped after we'd made the first sound effect work because it would have been a rinse and repeat for all of the different locations you wanted a sound effect. And the reason being is because in this particular game of tic-tac-toe, we actually only have the one gameplay file. So the benefit really probably isn't there in the same way as it will be in other versions of other games that you make. But I want to dive in and give you a real example as to why you need to learn to start using things called modules, which are essentially tables of information that you can require into your gameplay scenes, so you can write the code once externally and you can actually use it in multiple gameplay scenes. Now, before we do that, I'm just going to dive on over first of all to my left hand monitor screen. Let's just quickly bring up here the Corona documents. There's the link on the screen for you, and if we go up to where it says tutorials and we go into this basics tab here, you've got this whole section that they've written on using external modules. And I'm going to be really honest with you, when I was in the learning process of trying to get my head around Lua and I was like picking up this as a new language for me, I kind of got lost a little bit as to why I'd want to use these. It didn't make obvious sense to me, and it was a little bit confusing, but I don't actually think the process is confusing. I just think the way that they've explained it is what the confusion is about. So let's quickly dive on down here and look at the kind of the theory side of things first of all. Essentially what you have is this file, and in this example here they've called it example1.lua. So it's just a file, a .lua file that doesn't have all of the scene template information in it. It has pretty much nothing, and as you can see, it literally creates a variable at the top and gives it an empty table, and then it returns this variable at the bottom of the file. And what you do in between is all content that lives in this external file. So you can create functions, you can create variables, you can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But the great thing is, by designing this code in this location, you only have to write it once if it's something that's quite useful for you to use in lots of multiple gameplay scenes. Now, what you then do is in your actual gameplay scene or whatever file it is that you want to use this stuff, at the very top of the file you basically create a little variable and you assign it the content of your module. Okay, and I'm going to show you this in real example in a moment, and that's pretty much it. And then anything you want to do, so any variables that live in here, any functions that live in here, you just literally give it the variable name and then call the function, and it will do whatever it is that you ask it to do. And I'm going to show you some real examples, because I don't think the way that they've explained it necessarily is the simplest form for you to pick it up and run with. So let me just minimize that screen right now. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close my project, and I'm just going to open up my slider square, because this game here, let me actually just open up a folder and you can see as well. So it gives you some sort of insight behind the scenes, as it were. Let's do the live build. Right. Select folder. Okay, so this is just updating. And as you can see here now, this is the hierarchy of my slider square. Now, I could have built this in different ways, but I chose to actually create 100 gameplay files. So there's gameplay 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down to 100. Now just imagine, with all the different buttons that I use and all the different sound effects and this, that and the other, I decide after building this game that I want to change the sound effect. Well, that's fine, but essentially I've now got to go into 100 files and update it, and that's a lot of work, and that's needlessly something that I have to do. I could, you know, annoy the hell out of myself, irritate myself, or I could be smart and work smarter. So if you look down here a little bit further, what you can see is I've actually got, and this is my way of kind of writing things to myself, I actually name my modules with the word MOD at the beginning, so mod for module, and it just helps me kind of keep my brain in gear as to what this content is. And if I open up my module.lua, or sorry, my module audio.lua file here, what you can see is that I've got a local variable for saving some sound effects, which we haven't got into yet, but we will do that in a few videos from now, literally. And then I've got a couple of functions for managing the file itself when the game first loads, or seeing if the game's currently being played and it needs to load in settings that the player has played with. And then I've got this sound management function here. And as you can see, the actual functions themselves, because they live inside a module, they are global functions. There's no local being declared. I start everything with the word mod to mean module, because at the top here, this is how I've named my variable. I didn't just do the letter M like they did in the example. I found that was a bit ambiguous. So for me, I wanted a little bit more clarity as to what I'm doing. So I use the initials, or the abbreviation mod, and I assign it the empty table. And then, went too far. So this is how I now name my function, mod sound effect, and then if I've passed to it a name of a file to play, etc. And we're going to look at this in just a moment, because we're going to be building this. And then I end my file. Simple as that, okay? If I come out of there and I go into one of my gameplay 1 file, so let's just go into the first gameplay file, right, real quick. Oh, have you gone? There you go, GP1. And I go down, let's go to find mod audio. Right, okay. So what you can see here is I actually have the word mod audio this time. Now this is because at the very top of my file, what I've done is obviously I've required in the composer, which is the library of tools and resources for displaying on the screen your content that the clever chaps at Solar 2D have already designed for us. But using the exact same approach, I have then required in a colour library that I've started to build, an audio library that I've started to build. I've actually got my grid squares now being managed in an external file, because of the way that I design apps that have this same code every single time to make my life easier. So what I'm doing is I'm building my own library of tools and resources. Because I work a certain way, it means that the next app that I build will have a lot of these same requirements. Most of my apps are going to need to have colour, so it means that I haven't got to keep reinventing the wheel. And this is where the power of learning to use modules really kicks in. So I named the module file mod audio. So let me just open this up again so you can see it down the bottom. And the reason I also do this is because then it actually nicely groups because obviously everything's listed here in chronological and alphabetical order. So by starting everything with the word mod at the beginning, it actually means that all my module files are grouped together the same way my gameplay files or my overlay scenes are all put together. So you can see I have got a kind of a structure. I use M on its own for like a menu or a title screen, and I have these little sort of naming methods, shall I say, for how I structure my files. But essentially all of my modules, that my own libraries now that I am creating, live together. And as you can see, I've named my color one, which is mod color there. So all I'm taking it in the file, exclude that .lua extension, and then I'm putting it in a local variable which I happen to call the same thing. Now the only other thing that I've done here that's different in this particular game, any code that's relevant just to this style of game, which was a slider square, I've put in a module called slider square. But because that's quite a long thing to be talking about every time, I've actually just abbreviated it to mod game. Okay, so I know it's specific to this game, but it also means that if I ever want to use this code, like I'm going to build an adventure game and things like that, and I might want to use some of these kind of puzzles in something else later on, I know that all the code relating to the slider square game is living in there, but anything relating to the grid lives in that grid library, anything to audio and color and the app environment generally. So I've got this kind of little methodology to how I'm actually using modules in the structure and management of my files and how I'm building my apps. It's something that I personally have chosen to do. You don't have to do this, but likewise, you might need to embrace it, because if you don't want to have 100 file edits, especially with something like the tap button that's being used on more than one button on a thing, that could be like, you know, 300-400 edits of code that you've got to make purely because you've not used a module and put that text in one location where you can manage it easily. So theory over with. Now let's crack on with the actual game today. All right, so let's close this project down. Let's get rid of this and change my environment. Go back to my tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe, there we go. I'm just going to select that folder. I'm going to find it over here and open it in my simulator. Everything's now, there we go, tic-tac-toe over here in my my console. Everything is now back to where it should be. Okay, so we need to, let's start by actually creating a module. Now I could copy and paste the code for speed, but what I want to do is I just want to show you this text again so you can kind of glue all of this information together. So let's just start by creating the module itself, and I'm going to go File, New. Okay, and I'm literally going to copy and paste in this example here. Now the only thing that I do again that's different to these guys, actually no, they've got it, we've got this example print here, is I don't like the capital M. I just like to use the word mod for module, because I think it just, for me, helps clarify where the codes come from, and it's only 2 extra characters. So essentially we're going to create our empty table that's going to control our library of own written functions and variables. Okay, now in here I'm going to call this mod audio. .lua has been loaded. Okay, and as you can see, we've not yet saved it, so I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm going to make sure I'm obviously in the correct project because I've just been fiddling around. Okay, and right in the root directory, nowhere else, I'm going to come down here and call it mod audio.lua. Okay, let's just make sure that this isn't going to cause me any problems. There we go, there's my other Lua files, and I'm going to hit save. Okay, and as soon as I've saved it, you can see that all the colour of the text has changed. And if we slide over our folders, you can see now that I've got this mod audio.lua file existing. Okay, now nothing's going to happen yet because we haven't opened our gameplay one and we haven't required this in. So as far as our GP1 file is concerned, it does not know that this module of tools and resources, this library I've created, exists. So let's just cheat a little bit and copy this entire line because we're going to require in here, and I'm going to call this mod audio. So this is my local variable living only inside GP1, but we're going to require in mod audio. So I don't need to put the .lua extension. So this is my way of now telling the GP1 file, please go and get a copy or link to or connect with, whatever the terminology is, but I want you to go and basically link to my modaudio.lua file and bring in a local copy of it to live inside this variable called mod audio, which means now whenever I want to do something, I can literally put the word mod audio dot and then the function name. So why don't we just actually create a function here now to say test module, okay, literally just to print. And what we're going to do is we're just going to print a line. So if I call this anywhere now, just to show you how this works, how we actually call our functions, this is a line of text inside a function inside mod audio.lua. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. So now what we need to do is I need to just put the MOD there. Sorry, that's my bad. So I've now named this function with the appended to the front mod dot, because that's my module up there. So it's like a sort of a table reference, as it were. So test module is what we need. So I'm just going to copy all of that right now just to make my life easier. Copy, save, and then go into here. And then what we could do, just so that it instantly plays as we come down the create of our app, let's just for the moment stick this in here, and we are going to call this mod audio test module, and we're going to literally call it. We're not going to pass any parameters, we're not going to do anything, and all that should happen as I hit save now and we get rid of this screen on the background, and it's already done it, but there's my line of code. Okay, so looking through this is our game. Actually, that's not our game at all. Yes, it is tic-tac-toe, my bad, I just haven't updated the title. But essentially, as this GP1, let's just do that save again and show you. Right, let's save. There we go, refresh it. As you can see, tic-tac-toe here is loading version 1. We've gone to the GP1 file, which is what it's done. Okay, in fact, actually what's happened is as the game itself has loaded, the first thing this GP1 file has done is then run that line of code there, which has gone straight out to here, and it's grabbed, basically executed that line of code, which is where it says mod LUA has been loaded. And then when we've come back to GP1, then it's printed the line there, GP1 started. Okay, and then it's gone on about its normal day, doing its normal thing. Okay, so it's loaded all the local variables, it's gone to the create self view scene group, and it's created the background and all of the images and all the other bits and pieces as we usually do. And then this last line in the create section simply calls that function. So we're telling it what file to go to, what module file to go to, and what the name of the function is. And it's literally come back out to this file, and it's come down, found the function, which has been abbreviated so it knows it's the function test module, and it's literally printed that line of code here on the screen. And then as we've gone into the show wheel, the rest of the code from here on in has then executed. Now you can see on line 160 show wheel, and so on and so on and so on. So that is exactly how a module file works. Now for the sound effects, we've got our sound effects being loaded here. So we know that this line of code works. So let's just come out of there and cut that for the moment. I'm just going to delete the thing up here because I don't think I'm going to need it. Let's just do that, save. And now let's come down here and put in our sound effect. Okay, so we're going to call a local variable called sound effect success there. Okay, and let's now call this function sound effects. Okay, so now it's saying create a local variable that lives just inside this module. Okay, and we are going to load into this variable the sound effects that we want to use. Okay, so we still need to do something with this. So at the moment we're going to return sound effects. Let's just tidy up my code. Okay, so nice and simple at the moment. We've just got this all living inside here. In fact, we can get rid of this line now. We don't need it because we know it works. And I could just, for the moment, turn that off to keep things nice and simple. It's obviously going to give me, because it's still looking, we haven't updated the GP1 file yet, so that's fine. So, in fact, we are going to need that. Copy, So come back down to our winning line. Let's just close this now, give ourselves some space. Where's our winning line? There we go. So this is the sound effect that we added in, that line to make that sound effect play in the last video. So I will put a link up there for you to be able to access that. But essentially on that line 255, what we need to do now is we need to kind of change it basically. So we're going to turn around and actually call mod audio dot sound effects, but we need to tell it which one to play. So for the moment we are going to send it sound effect success. There we go. And I'll tell you why we're going to use this as in a moment. Let's just go out to our mod. So this is going to receive in a sound effect in. Okay, we need to do something with it. So we are going to, if sound effect success is equal to true, then we're going to load up, and obviously we'll add in else ifs to test the other ones in a moment. So we've got a local variable inside our function that now will be populated if this is the correct one to work with. In fact, we could put sound effect in, okay, because we don't know which one it's going to be. So let's just change that, copy and paste. So if the sound effect in is true, that's not going to work, is it? So let's send it the word success. That's better. Then if the sound effect in received is success, then we are going to load up this local variable with the sound, and then we're going to send it back. So that's our module completed. Now let's just go and correct our, there we go. What we're going to do now is we've got to play this, the result of this function call. So hit save. Okay, there's our game, and now it works. So we've now got the setup working correctly. What we can do now is, using this exact same sound effect, is we could basically populate all of the other sound effects, the buttons, the whoosh sounds, etc. So something you're going to have to bear in mind, at the moment we're testing for what sound effects. So we're basically naming it here a word, so we could say whoosh or button tap or whatever we want to send as a command that can be identified. So what we need to do here is we need to basically change and jig around what's going on here, so because we don't know which particular sound is going to be returned. So if I cut that from there and put it in here, okay, it means now copy, and I could go in here, let's just change this around, else if the sound effect in is whoosh. There you go. I don't know how to spell whoosh, maybe 2 O's. I'm going with 2 O's. Okay, at which point we need to change the name of the file it plays itself. So go up to our audio files, and it is a whoosh, so we're going to change this to whoosh. Okay, so that matches our WAV file there in the location. That's great. And then what we're going to do is, as we're only going to use this code inside this area here, let's tidy things up a little bit. Just put a local sound effect whoosh. Okay, and then we can return it in that instance there. So let's just spread things out, and I don't know if you can see it too well. Let's just make the screen a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. So what we've got now is an else if statement going on to basically test the condition of the sound effect in that we receive. So we don't know what name that is going to be. So we're basically going to investigate it to see if it holds the word success or holds the word whoosh. And we're going to copy this again. We're going to do button tap. Okay, and now what we would have done is we would have we're going to put, say, the word tap. Okay, at which point if we come back over here, we've got a button tap.wav file. So I'm going to change that there to button tap. So we've now got 3 sound effects populated. We're looking for a tap, a tap, and it doesn't suppose it really matters because it's inside this else if. It's actually only local to this area, but it just gets a little bit confusing if you don't do your homework and tidy up things as you go. So essentially, as we do all of this now and we change, we've got our effects all sorted. And if we go back to our GP1, what we can do now is we've got this line sorted out as what we want it to do. We can just change the word success to tap or whoosh in the relevant places. And now I'm going to be using the same sound effect regardless of whether it's a noughts or a cross, but you guys could get really funky and on deciding which character to place. You could play a different sound if you wanted to. I'm just going to put this in here just before this section, and I'm going to change the word to whoosh. Was it a capital W? Let's have a look. I send in, no, all lowercase, so it has to be the same lowercase here, right? Okay, so I send the whoosh every time. It is now determining which square on the board I've tapped on. Let's just see if that works. There we go. And because, there we go, so we've got two sound effects. So I can literally do the same thing now with the word tapped, and I could go out to the overlay screen and I can update this. Now that you've got this effect working, okay, let's just presume I've done all of those other changes. One final thing that we need to do now is we need to now test if the game has been set to mute or not. Now, A, we haven't yet designed that button, and B, we're going to do something that is a little bit naughty. We're going to use a global variable, and I know everywhere it says don't use a global variable, but we're going to use it in a composer environment that creates a global variable, and not just because we've forgotten to use the word local and declared a variable local or global. So that's what we're going to be covering in the next video that follows this, because when the game first loads up, it needs to know whether to play sound effects or not, or to even go and check to see if the sound effects have been stored by the player and have been overwritten and said maybe it's all muted. So we need to have this a way of kind of controlling. So we're going to look at global variables in the next video, and in the video after that we're actually going to learn to save data to our device memory to basically store the commands that the players have set in the settings page. And it's all happening in the next couple of videos. So if you haven't already, why not? But please do click that subscribe button. Stay sort of notified to my channel as and when I release videos, and I will see you on another video real soon. Thanks very much.